You know that feeling when you think, you've finally found the perfect neighborhood? Well, let me tell you about the time I thought I'd landed in suburban paradise, only to discover I'd moved next door to the most power-hungry HOA president you could imagine. And when she decided my dog was a menace to society, she had no clue she was about to pick a fight with someone who had 6 years of police training and backup she never saw coming. This whole mess started 3 weeks ago when I moved into Willowbrook Estates, one of those cookie-cutter neighborhoods, where every house looks identical and the grass has to be exactly 2.5 inches tall. I'd been looking for months for somewhere quiet where I could settle down with my partner, Rexy. Now, Rexy isn't your typical house pet. She's a German Shepherd with 6 years of active duty in the police K-9 unit, trained in explosives detection, narcotics identification, and suspect apprehension. But when she's off duty, she's just like any other dog, loves belly rubs, plays fetch, and has this adorable habit of tilting her head. When you talk to her, the moving truck had barely pulled away when I got my first taste of what I was dealing with. I was on my front porch unpacking a box of books when Rexy was lying beside me in the shade, completely relaxed. That's when I heard the sharp click of heels on concrete and looked up to see this woman marching toward my house like she owned the entire neighborhood. Karen, and yes, that really is her name, is exactly what you'd picture when someone says HOA president. Perfectly styled blonde hair that probably costs more than my monthly grocery budget. A pantsuit that screams, "I demand to speak to your manager," and this clipboard that she carries around like it's some kind of royal scepter. She stopped at the bottom of my driveway, looked at Rexy, and I swear I could see the gears turning in her head. "Excuse me," she called out, not even bothering with a proper introduction. "That dog cannot be here. We have very strict policies about aggressive breeds." I looked down at Rexy, who hadn't even lifted her head. She was literally doing nothing except existing while being a German Shepherd. "I'm sorry, what?" I said, standing up. "She's not aggressive. She's actually incredibly well-trained." Karen scoffed, and I mean a full-on, dramatic scoff like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "Well-trained or not, we have breed restrictions in this community. No German Shepherds, no Rottweilers, no Pit Bulls. It's all outlined in the Homeowner's handbook. You should have read it before moving here." Now here's the thing. I did read that handbook, cover to cover, twice. Because when you work in law enforcement, you learn to pay attention to details. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the PDF I'd saved. "You mean this handbook? Page 14, Section 6, subsection C? The one that specifically states service animals and active-duty working dogs are exempt from all breed restrictions?" I watched Karen's confident expression falter for just a second before she recovered. "Well, she's obviously not a service dog. You can't just claim that to get around the rules. People lie about that all the time." That's when I knew I was dealing with someone who had never been told no in her entire HOA career. I calmly reached into my wallet and pulled out Rexy's official K-9 certification, a laminated card with her photo, badge number, and the signature of our police chief. "You're right, she's not a service dog," I said, handing it to her. "She's a certified police K-9 officer with the Metropolitan Police Department. She's trained to detect explosives, track suspects, and identify illegal narcotics. And yes, she lives with me because I'm her handler." Karen's face went through about 5 different shades of red as she stared at the card. For a moment, I thought she might actually apologize and walk away. But apparently being wrong only made her more determined to be right. This doesn't change anything," she stammered, shoving the card back at me. "Regardless of her training, she's still a visual threat to the community. Children play in this neighborhood. Elderly residents walk these streets. They shouldn't have to feel intimidated by an attack dog." An attack dog? She called Rexy an attack dog. I looked down at my partner, who was now sitting calmly beside me, watching Karen with the kind of professional assessment that comes from years of reading people. If Karen had bothered to actually observe Rexy's body language, she would have seen a completely relaxed, non-threatening animal. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. "Ma'am," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "Rexy has never shown aggression toward anyone who wasn't actively committing a crime. She's been evaluated annually by veterinary behaviorists. She has better training and temperament. Certification than most people in this neighborhood. I don't care about your certificates, Karen snapped. I care about the safety and peace of mind of our residents. That dog needs to go. She turned and marched back down my driveway, leaving me standing there with my mouth open. I'd dealt with hostile suspects, uncooperative witnesses, and even armed criminals. But somehow this suburban HOA president had managed to completely blindside me. 2 days later, I found out Karen wasn't just blowing hot air. There was an official notice of violation, taped to my front door, a formal demand to remove Rexy from the property within 7 days or face daily fines of $50. $50 a day for owning a police canine, who had literally helped solve crimes and keep the community safe. That's when I decided it was time to call in some backup. First, I contacted my sergeant to explain the situation. He was not happy. When you mess with a canine officer, you're not just messing with a pet, you're interfering with official police equipment. Then I called our department's legal team, who were equally unimpressed with the HOA's interpretation of local and federal law. Within 3 days, the HOA board received a formal cease and desist letter from the city attorney's office. It was beautiful. 3 pages of legal language, explaining exactly why attempting to remove a certified police canine from their handler's residence would violate federal protections for working animals, state laws regarding law enforcement equipment, and local ordinances supporting first responders. But my sergeant decided the legal letter wasn't quite enough. He wanted to make sure the message was crystal clear. That's why, on Friday afternoon, Lieutenant Rodriguez pulled up to Karen's house in a marked police cruiser, with Rexy sitting proudly in the passenger seat wearing her official K9 vest. I watched from my porch as he walked up to Karen's door and knocked. She peeked through the curtains, saw the uniform, and I swear she turned 3 shades paler. She never came to the door. Lieutenant, Rodriguez left a copy of the cease and desist letter in her mailbox, along with a business card and a note explaining that any further harassment of active duty K9 personnel would be considered interference with police operations. Then he drove slowly through the neighborhood, making sure everyone could see Rexy in her official capacity. The next HOA board meeting was apparently quite interesting, though I didn't attend. According to my neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, who definitely did attend and was happy to fill me in, Karen tried to argue that the police department was overstepping their authority. The other board members basically told her she was on her own if she wanted to fight federal law. It's been 2 weeks since then, and the difference in the neighborhood is amazing. Karen crosses the street when she sees me coming. But more importantly, I've had 3 different neighbors stop by to meet Rexy properly and thank her for her service. Turns out, when people know they're living next to a trained police K9, they actually feel safer, not more threatened. Mrs. Peterson told me. She sleeps better knowing there's a certified crime-fighting dog 3 houses down. Mr. Williams from across the street asked if Rexy would be interested in doing a demonstration for the neighborhood kids about police work. Even the mailman stops to give her treats now that he knows she's official. Rexy, for her part, seems completely unbothered by the whole drama. She still lounges on the front porch every morning, still tilts her head when neighbors wave, and still gets excited when she sees her tennis ball. The only difference is the new collar tag she wears, a custom badge that reads Officer Rexy, K9 Unit, Metropolitan Police Department. Karen finally tried to talk to me again last week. She approached while I was watering my perfectly regulation height grass and cleared her throat awkwardly. I just want you to know, she said, that I was only looking out for the community's best interests. I looked at her, then at Rexy, who was watching the conversation with professional interest. Karen, I said, Rexy has spent 6 years protecting communities just like this one. She's helped solve dozens of cases, found missing persons, and kept dangerous drugs off the streets. Maybe next time, instead of assuming the worst about someone, you could try asking questions first. She mumbled something about misunderstandings and walked away. I don't think she'll be bothering us again. The best part of this whole story? Last week, the police department announced They're starting a community outreach program where K-9 officers visit neighborhoods to build positive relationships with residents. Guess who volunteered to be the first stop on their route? That's right. Willowbrook Estates is about to get very familiar with police dogs. And Karen, as HOA president, gets to officially welcome them all. So, if you ever find yourself dealing with someone who thinks they can intimidate you just because they have a clipboard and a title, remember, you never know who you're really messing with. Sometimes that dangerous dog sleeping peacefully on the porch has more authority than the person trying to boss you around. And sometimes, the best way to handle a bully is to let them find out exactly how wrong they are in the most official way possible. If you enjoyed watching, Karen learned that not all dogs are just pets. Smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about people who picked fights with the wrong neighbors. Trust me, I've got plenty more where that came from.